everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Sunday, March the 5th, race number 3 at Santa Anita. There are some Kentucky Oaks qualifying points on the line in the Santa Ysabel, a race postponed 1 week due to weather. We're going 1 mile and a 16th. Let's take a look at this field of 3-year-old fillies. Only 6, Mike, but a pretty evenly matched group of 6. You've got last year's best 2-year-old filly in Southern California, the number 2, and Tell Me No Lies, making her seasonal debut. And she's going to take on the 6 Faiza, the 1 Pride of the Nile. They're right now the best 3-year-old fillies in Southern California.
Yeah, so far we haven't seen that fast race yet, Dan, out of any of these fillies. But you sort of suspect that that's going to be coming with time, or at least you hope that it will. So far, the number 6 Faiza has had Pride of the Nile's number a little bit, but it's pretty close between them.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. Our friends at Timeform US believe that this race might favor front runners. That helps stretch out sprinter Blessed Touch. That certainly helps Faiza, a horse with wonderful tactical speed, and it hurts the number 5 Justique, who still must prove that she's more than a late running sprinter.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. They're going to stay long with Justique here in this race. It'll be interesting to see if she can somehow find a way to move forward, Dan, because you're right. So far, her 2 sprint races are really good, and her 2 route races are pretty disappointing.
Pride of the Nile is the number 1, and she's done very little wrong for trainer Doug O'Neill. They began her career on turf. She did some nice things on the turf. They took a shot at the Starlet at Los Alamitos to close out her 2-year-old campaign. She ran big. She got beat ahead by Faiza. Last time out in the Las Virginas, I thought she had a pretty good trip, tracking in mid-pack. She followed Faiza into the stretch and just couldn't forge on by. Does the extra distance help a little bit, 1 mile and a 16th? She's got to stay close to the pace.
Yeah, I mean, she should from the rail here, assuming that she gets out of the gate this time, Dan. I guess the big trouble for her in the Starlet came at the start, where she stumbled very badly at the break there. To wind up at the back, made an inside move and was dead game in that race. That was a good performance. She ran well again last time, but she was always behind Faiza and then could not get to her in the stretch. She ran well again, Dan. She's got to find a way to get over the hump.
The number 2 is And Tell Me No Lies, Mike, and I thought you made a very good point in the open, in that these fillies have yet to run a fast race, and that could be potentially good news for And Tell Me No Lies, who was a Grade 1 winner last year, multiple graded stakes winner, never ran the fast race. That's why she was dismissed at a big price in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And all in all, I thought her Breeders' Cup was okay, because she must have been hung out 4 wide most of the way and was still punching on a little bit at the end.
Yeah, they took her wide on the backstretch in that race, Dan. Overall, she got a pretty clean trip, though. It is worth pointing out that that pace was fast. So being away from it was really no problem for her in there. And she just really couldn't get herself into contention in that race. Just a spot where she needed to take a step forward to be competitive, and she didn't take a step forward in there. Maybe it was the wide trip. She'll get a chance at a little redemption here, Dan. She was good as a 2-year-old. She just didn't run fast. I guess the main issue for her here is she didn't really show a lot of speed after they stretched her out last year. And if they go slow in front of her in this race, first back off the layoff, she could have a lot to overcome.
The number 3 is Blessed Touch, and her only lifetime win came in gate-to-wire fashion, and she might be able to make the lead here. Don't be fooled by her 1-2-turn start, which was the Starlet last year. She just didn't break very well that day. She made her seasonal debut in a sprint, likely a prep race for something longer like this. And let's watch. She was very unlucky. She tries to split horses in mid-stretch, and you're going to see she's completely stopped, Mike. She might have been best in here.
Yeah, she gets shut off there, squeezed a little bit at the 8th pole. I like it. I like that she's able to regather, Dan, and start to come again at the end of this race. She can't quite get up, but maybe she deserves a little extra credit for trying as hard as she did. I'll just say that I'm not sure that trouble was everything in that race, if only because overall she was up close to that pace. And the only reason she got in tight in the stretch is because the runner-up moved right past her at the top of the stretch. And this filly just really couldn't go with her. And then she got herself into trouble. So that was an issue for me. The flip side of that, Dan, is we were talking about no fast races. This horse ran pretty fast breaking her maiden.
And she might be able to get to the lead with an alert break. She's found trouble thus far in some of her starts. The 4 is Spanning the Globe, who won 2 starts back, a maiden race over the Tapeta at Golden Gate Fields. Now that was slow. Some of these other fillies are slow. That was slow. A 54 Beyer speed figure. First start against winners. She's 107-1 on the turf. Spanning the Globe's got to do a little more.
I guess her connections are just entering here hoping that she's better on dirt than she is on the other two surfaces, Dan, because her form on those surfaces don't make her a contender in here.
And here's the number 5, Justique. In those sprint races that we talked about earlier, I think she's shown just as much talent as some of the other horses in this race. But in her two-turn races, she's lacked the punch and she's lacked speed, which could work against her. Case in point was last time out in the Las Virginas, a race where she just fell so far behind early. It looked like she had to actually work just to get within hailing range at the half-mile pole. And I think the only reason she got up for third wasn't because she was kicking on, but because the horse that finished fourth was exhausted.
Yeah, exactly. Even though she did ultimately get third in there, Dan, she was really never in contention in that race behind a couple of fillies, of course, so she's going to meet again here. I don't know. I guess we'll see what kind of price she goes off at in this race, and maybe it's fair enough to give her one more chance. She's been really, really disappointing, though, the 2 times they went long with her. She just doesn't really have a stretch kick in those longer races.
Check out Bradfree's Race Advance on DRF.com. John Sheriff still believes that she can get this distance and that the excuses for the two-turn races are that she missed time in before those races because of sickness. Well, she missed time here because of the weather. I think she could be the 4th choice in this spot. The number 6 is Faiza, the horse to beat. Bob Baffert trains. Here's her win in the Las Virginas last time out. Turning into the stretch, this jock is looking around like he's going to win by 100. And she makes the lead very easily from the front runner, Sweet Trouble, who gets tired. And here comes Pride of the Nile on the outside, but Faiza digs down deep. She's solid. It'd be nice to see a fast race.
Yeah, that's the one thing you're waiting for with her. She's actually been pretty good in all 3 of her starts. And even though this gets a little bit closer at the end, I don't know, Dan, to me, it never looked like she was losing that race. Just another good performance from her. And even though, we talked about the trouble Pride of the Nile had in that Starlet 2-back, it's not like this horse had, some kind of super easy trip in there. She was very wide throughout the running there and still got the job done. I know she's not fast yet, but she's rock solid.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for our Kentucky Oaks prep race on Sunday. Faiza's the horse to beat. She's going to take the money, and she's going to take a lot of beating.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick with her, Dan. I couldn't really get to any of the alternatives in this race. I realized that she's probably going favored in here, but I just didn't like any of the other horses enough to take a shot against her.
I'm scared of And Tell Me No Lies. I have a feeling she's going to run pretty well in this spot despite the layoff. I want to give Justique one more race. 2 turns, obviously a question mark. The pace scenario, obviously a question mark. So I need her to be the 4th choice before I can even go to the windows. Mike's going with Faiza. I'm going Justique and Faiza in the Santa Ysabel. Good luck.